the fundamental motion of electron by itself is just fun to know because it's complicated, it's quantum mechanical, it's everything, everywhere, all at once. Hey, I'm Manoram. I'm a PhD student with the Ferenc Krausz group, working within the attosecond spectroscopy 2.0 group at the Max Planck Institute of Quantum Optics. I also happen to be a part of the IMPRS-APS. So firstly, I work as a theoretical physicist. Typically, theoretical physicists, our job involves firstly solving some equations, sometimes going on a blackboard. Blackboards are fun to use. Sometimes using a tablet or whatever, so you solve some equations and then take a few months to implement those equations in a computer. The idea being now our computers are fast enough that we can actually simulate entire physics based on what is dictated by those equations in the computer itself. And then we try to see, okay, is it actually close to experiment or not? And maybe there are things which we can simulate, which to recreate an experiment would take millions of dollars and would take a lot of time. It saves a lot of money, saves a lot of time. What I actually do now is being a theoretical physicist, specifically in attosecond physics, which means I worry about what happens when a really, really strong light, which is very, very short in time, so it's like kind of few femtosecond pulses, go inside a material, they create free electrons, and these free electrons move around. And I really want to know what those free electrons are doing, when they're coming out, how they move, when they get back in the material, and so on and so forth, because all these things can be used to improve all the attosecond technologies, so like measuring it or creating different kind of pulses and so on. Just the fundamental motion of electron by itself is just fun to know because it's complicated, it's quantum mechanical, it's everything, everywhere, all at once. So, I wanted to do something in like materials where like things are complicated and things that you don't expect can happen. But then the idea that like because you're doing things attosecond, it means you really, really do think about how electrons are physically moving in space. This made it like a very intuitive picture for me. Like, so in my daily life, when I'm talking about what's happening, I actually have to imagine like an electron coming out, going back in, and then imagine actually all of that, those things happening quantum mechanically. So like in my head kind of going, okay, it's not just one electron, it's going to be a bunch of electrons coming out at different places with different velocities, and they'll have like slightly different trajectories. And like thinking about all of that is just fun because you truly, truly appreciate the quantum mechanical nature of just electron movement. But somehow you also get to imagine it, which is very rare. Like it's rare that you can actually imagine quantum mechanics. So. I just used the title of my supposed thesis.
Which would be?
Resolving strong field ionization. No, yeah, that sounds too physicsy. Okay, seeing electrons go vroom. Or vroom, like the, seeing electrons go vroom, because basically that's what I'm doing. Sometimes there would be something where like I am actively working on writing some papers, so it would mean like reading in case there's some literature which would be relevant for me. Then it's a combination of doing simulations, waiting for them, doing some actual equation solving once in a while, because like the simulations can give you correct results, but they are not necessarily intuitive. Physicists like to not just have the right answer, we like to know how we got to that answer. And when you do a very, very complex calculation, it can be that you get the correct answer, but interpreting how you got that answer is not easy. So a part of my job would also be, okay, we know the correct answer, let me see if there's some kind of easier equation, like an analytical approximation, with which I can explain how one gets to that answer. So basically, in parallel, it would be simulations, solving equations, seeing if those equations work on the simulations. So kind of like, for example, nonlinear fitting. So there's a lot of coding involved. If I'm in a very intense simulation phase, there's a lot of debugging involved, interpretation of data. It's a combination of, yeah, emailing and sitting in front of, okay, it's mostly sitting in front of a computer. In terms of research, maybe the main thing that I'm working on is like trying to convince a bunch of people that an approximation that a lot of them think is good enough and would give you like results which are good enough to be used in actual experiments is just really not good enough. So people like an easy equation, people like that they can understand it, and then trying to explain to people, well, it's an approximation, it has these and these problems, and it really doesn't work. It can be hard, but I find it very rewarding. Be like, okay, no, this is just stop using this. So outside of research, I like to travel quite a bit. Like I would say, if I get the opportunity, I would go somewhere, like especially like with the Germany, the Deutschland ticket. It's pretty nice that you can just like randomly go somewhere. Combined with the conferences and also like your own personal trips, you end up going to quite a few, at least European countries and some other countries. I like to work out a lot because it's like my way to reset after a day. I would say my favorite pastime is still like generally movies because they bring me joy, or like books. Because like a good piece of fiction has a power which science simply doesn't. It can explain you things which are not explainable in words. So, yeah. Okay, so for me it was more like my PhD supervisor contacted me for a thesis, and like when I was joining him for a PhD, he was like, well, you might as well apply for this in case you get in. It can be advantageous because it gives you a network and it has its own events and it has like a sort of dedicated fund to promote the upskilling of the actual students. So applied, like it was a relatively short interview. I got in and yeah, basically that's it. Every PhD student can benefit from having some additional travel funds, which IMPRS-APS provides, especially if there's a conference which, for example, you want to go to, but your professor or your supervisor doesn't necessarily have the budget for. Or like, for example, summer schools. If there's like a summer school, which is like a super long 1 month place where you learn like actual entirely new field, it's going to cost a lot, but you have the allowance for that. Is the fact that you get access to like the whole sort of different kind of classes that are available within the Max Planck Society. So the entire learning platform. You have to get certain credits for different lectures. So it ensures that even as a PhD, it's not like you're only getting expertise in your own thing. You have to still attend some like 1 or 2, maybe 3 lectures in your entire PhD time. So essentially the main fact that I liked about it is that it ensures that you get a bit more general training. So you get good at things other than your PhD, and that you get additional funding for specific things that you might you want to do, for which your group might not have the fund for. So the IMPRS retreats in the Ringberg castles have always been quite memorable, because that's a time where you get to meet people outside of your group, but they most of them have a similar background, so it's like being in a conference, except that all of us there are not necessarily with the aim of like promoting research or something. We almost use it as a place where we can practice presenting a thing for some other thing, and then having a nice evening, talking to each other, playing games or whatever. Yeah, APS has like a lot of workshops, so calling one particular memorable would be a bit disingenuous because they're all quite useful. Like the recent ones I remember is like the career workshop, which was useful because it really made me think seriously about like sort of networking. Yeah, I think most events that we've had with APS so far were quite useful and memorable because they give you opportunities which are different from your research.